Are we going backwards or forwards? I can't. With technology, I don't know if it's backwards or forwards we're going.
Yeah, this is brave new world, man.
It is.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a better one.
Yeah. You don't like it?
Not convinced, no.
No?
It's going a bit fast, isn't it, everything?
Yeah, too fast, yeah.
I think so, yeah. I'm not sure. I think we're losing control a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
Especially with artificial intelligence, you know. That's quite frightening. It's amazing, but it's also quite frightening.
But did you start to use?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. It's in many areas. Even my daughter, you know, talking to an application and having a conversation with it, you know, it's like weird. She's 5, you know, talking to this person on Duolingo.
Okay.
And it has a conversation with you.
All right.
And it's quite freaky for a 5-year-old child to be having a conversation about school or food, and it understands and it answers you.
Yeah.
It has a conversation with you, and it's a robot or a computer. So yeah, I think I'm not convinced that. I think it's maybe going faster than it perhaps is good. But we see. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, yesterday I was reading about the people looking for, this medicines.
Pharmaceutical stuff.
Yeah, and with talking with ChatGPT about their health.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing. And there are positives for sure, and that is one of them. I mean, if it's telling you the truth, of course.
Yeah, but I mean, most of the people were writing the chat is better than my local doctor.
That's also true. Yeah, and it doesn't charge you 300 zloty for the privilege of being there for 10 minutes. But like I say, when that side of it's good, but then when you watch your child having a conversation with an app and it's interacting, you know, it's understanding what she's saying and talking about it. And she was talking about the fact she went to the cinema and watched Avatar, and they're saying, yeah, Avatar's a good film, and starts talking about the film with her, and you know, and she believes it's real, you know, and that side of it, I'm not so sure about, you know, just because, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, a bit weird. Like in the movie, old movie Her. Did you see the movie Her? Well, it was like 10 years ago, and it was about this stuff. The guy fell in love with the computer already.
I'm sure that's already happening, you know. But then, I mean, these types of things happened in the past as well, you know. I guess if people are stupid enough to go down that road, then it's like Ricky Gervais. He said on the side of a bottle of bleach in English, it says "Do not drink." You know, it's written on it, "Do not drink bleach for the toilet." And he was talking about the Brexit vote and about that people should have the right to vote. And he said ordinary people should have the right to vote. And he said, well, I'm not so convinced, you know. He said, why don't we take off the sign that says "Do not drink"? Take it off for 2 years, and then have a vote.
Okay.
See who we have left, because some people are pretty stupid. That's for sure.
Okay, Ray Wilson here. Hello.
Dzień dobry. Good morning.
Dzień dobry. Good morning. Not your first time here in this building?
It isn't. It's a great building, this. I love this building, I have to say. But yeah, I've been here 2 or 3 times, I think, over the years. Certainly 2 times before.
Yeah. It was called Radio Mercury.
It was Mercury, yeah. And my wife was here as well. She did a Christmas song, and she was here talking about it. She told me today that she had been here for an interview. She sang, I forget the name of the song, but she did a version of some classic Christmas song, and she was promoting it. So she was here also.
Okay. All right. And 5, almost 6 years ago, we were talking, well, not here in the studio, during COVID times, about this.
You remember that? Oh my God.
Yeah.
COVID time. Yeah, that was an interesting time, wasn't it? And we did concerts online. It was fun for about 3 or 4 weeks, and then it was boring. Then it was like, okay, I need an audience. I need people, you know. But it was kind of fun the first 2 or 3 times we did it. We did it each week with my band, and I had like a drummer from the US, and my keyboard player was actually on a cruise liner in Australia. You know, he was part of the band, and, you know, it was fascinating that people were everywhere, and we actually managed to play together. It was really quite amazing. But like I say, after 3 or 4 weeks, the problem with that is that with the performing online is obviously when you do a live concert, you have a different audience every night. So you can play the same songs, because the audience changes. When you're doing it online, you have many of the same audience coming back week after week, so you have to change the show all the time. And of course, if you're performing for an hour or something, you may be performing 10 or 12 songs, and you need to keep changing it. So you're like 50 songs, 60 songs, 70 songs, 80 songs, and it becomes a bit more complicated. But it was fun.
Okay, but it's good it's over, yeah?
I would agree. It's over for now. Although I just came back from Thailand, and they were screening for another virus. Nipah, yeah. They were screening for that. God in hell. But there's only a couple of people died. I mean, it's still 2 people, but I think 2 people died in India from it, that I read. But they were screening for that. And it reminded me, because I was in Thailand then as well, actually when COVID broke out, because I have 2 children that live in Thailand, you know. So I'm there 3-4 times a year. And when COVID broke out it was Chinese New Year in Thailand. And I was there in January, February 2020. And the first case of COVID happened in Hua Hin, in Thailand, where I was, in the shopping centre where I went every day. Okay. That was the first case of it in Thailand, and it was because of Chinese New Year. Chinese people who had contracted the virus had come into Thailand, and so it went on. So I remember that at the beginning of, I think it was around the beginning of February, and I came back from Thailand and then started concerts again. And I remember it must have been something like March 10 or 8 or March 7, something like that, and we were supposed to leave to perform in Germany near Frankfurt am Main, the west side of Germany. And we all got in the bus, the guys, some of my band, and I sat there in the bus and I said, you know something? I've got a feeling that if we leave today, we're not going to be able to come back. And I just felt this, you know. I said, because I'd been watching the news, and I decided to cancel 3 concerts that weekend. We didn't leave, and we went back home. The promoters were really not happy about it. And then 2 days later, they closed the border with Poland. Remember, all the trucks were going back like 10, 15, 20 kilometers. They closed the border, so I made the right decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are your predictions about this Nipah virus
well,
now?
I mean, I don't know if I'm not an expert on that, but I mean, I think it's going to be something we have to live with. I mean, there's been viruses for many, many years, you know, and of course, I think it's good to be vigilant and cautious, of course, you know, and take it seriously. But my understanding of the Nipah virus is it's you have to be in someone's presence for quite a long time to contract it. It's not quite so fast a process, but it does kill 70% or something, or 50 or 70% of people that contract it. So it's certainly something to be taken seriously. But let's hope it's, you know, a nothing burger, as the Americans would say. Let's hope so.
Tell me what your children living in Thailand think about you living in Poland.
Well, they're just little girls, actually, and they're coming back here. One of my daughters was born here. One of my Thai daughters was actually born in Poland anyway, so she knows Poland. But they're coming back again as well this year. But they went there basically for kindergarten, you know, for preschool, because it's a very good private school, and so they study there. And like I say, I go there 3-4 times a year over the last few years to see them. But they'll be coming back. And I have a young daughter with my wife. So I actually have 3 daughters now. So when I was
Congratulations.
Thank you. When I was 50 years old, I had no children. Now I have 3, and I'm 57. So my life's changed a lot. But it's great. There's nothing better than having children. And I know it's quite challenging especially for the mum, in the early stages. And my youngest daughter was born during COVID, in June, during COVID. So in Poland, and you couldn't go into the hospital, and it was a very, very difficult time, my God, for people, and to have a baby in that time, not easy.
Okay.
Not easy. But, everything's okay, so that's what matters.
Okay, but you're saying that this is the best thing in life, yes?
There's no question about it. I've had, when I think about my career or the things that I've been able to do in my life, I've had some magical times over the years. But there's nothing better than having children and being able to introduce them into your world, and just to experience that kind of unconditional love that you don't really experience anywhere else. There's something about it, and I love the fact that I have girls, because there's something about it being a dad with daughters. There's something about that that's really quite special for me. So, yeah, it's great. I love it. Okay. I love having my little girls. I love them very much. Okay,
because it's it's not so popular right now.
No, I mean it's expensive.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of time and takes a lot of your life. I think for me it's good, because I'm 57. If I was 27, I would probably have a different attitude to the attitude I have now. But at this stage in my life, at 57, it's a wonderful thing. I mean, I'm in the kind of later stages of my life, so it's quite nice to think that everything I've done and what I have in my life, I can actually leave to my children. It's quite a nice feeling. So there's nothing better than it. He says it in the Godfather. The Godfather tells you everything you ever need to know about life in the Godfather movies. You can discover everything you ever need to know about life. And I remember Al Pacino talking as his character in The Godfather, that there is nothing greater than children. And he's right, even though it was just a film, but it's a true statement.
All right. Sounds nice. And you've mentioned 27.
27? What did I mention?
Yeah, you've mentioned being 27.
Or 57.
Yeah, 57.
Oh, you mean if I was 27? Yes, I was.
Yes.
30 years ago I was 27.
Yeah, exactly. 27 is a very dangerous, age in rock music, yes.
Yes, that's when all the deaths occurred. Amy Winehouse and Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah,
and
Jim Morrison,
Kurt Cobain. I managed to make it through my 27. Actually, when I was 27, let me think about this. I joined Genesis, I think, when I was 27.
Exactly.
Yes, I did. Yes, that's when I joined Genesis. So I didn't die.
Yeah. You didn't die.
No, I'm still here.
The opposite.
Exactly.
I would say.
Yeah, it was an interesting year for me, for sure. Yeah, I think it was 1997. No, 1996.
96, in March.
In 1996, I joined Genesis. Actually, I auditioned in May.
Oh.
And I guess I officially joined maybe in September or something, because the original meeting was just an audition, which was in May.
Can you tell us about this really moment in your life? Because I imagine you talking to your friends, for example. Hey, I'm going to a Genesis audition.
Yeah, I know. But at that time, I mean, before Genesis, I'd been with Stiltskin and been number one and been on MTV screens all over Europe, which back then was a big deal, to be on MTV and to be number one in the European chart and stuff. So I'd kind of experienced that madness already in a different way, because of course Stiltskin was very commercial, and it was also a Levi commercial, so it was in every cinema all over Europe and other parts of the world.
Yeah,
so
we knew this commercial here in Poland.
Yeah, I mean, it was an amazing time. To be part of that was really something special. More so, it was much more special than joining Genesis. It maybe sounds strange, but it was. It really was the kind of living the dream. And when I joined Genesis, it was a little bit more like becoming the chairman of a bank, or something like this. It wasn't so rock and roll anymore. But it was a very serious job, of course. It was, it had a lot of expectation and pressures attached to it. But like I say, back then I was young, I was full of self-confidence, arrogant, self-belief. And for me, it was just, okay, so I'm going to sing with one of the biggest rock bands in the world. Why not? I really was like that, I just believed in myself. So, as much as it was a very surreal experience, but it also felt like, why not? Why not?
Okay, but now you say that you hate this show business machine that you've met out there.
I think everybody does. I mean, every musician who's been in the business for quite a long time, it's fun in the beginning. The circus, the media circus that surrounds it, it's obviously fun and exciting. But as the years go by, you kind of you really fall out of love with it. Certainly I do. It's not. I'm much more private now than I ever was then. I say no to when people ask me for interviews now. I say no 99 times out of 100. So I really don't do interviews anymore so much, because I just got tired of saying the same thing over and over again. And I did some nice interviews, like Rolling Stone magazine contacted me from the US, about a year ago or so, and I did an interview with them. Of course, I said yes to that because I knew it would be on a high level, and it was. It was a very high-level interview, and the guy really knew what he was talking about, and he knew everything about my career. He knew about music, of course. So that kind of interview is always great to do, but most interviews are not like that. They're a little bit like, what's your favourite colour and can you speak Polish, which is a bit boring after a while. But, there are some that are quite special. The Guardian as well. They did an interview with the Guardian newspaper as well, and so every now and again you get something that's on a different level, and it's nice to do. And a lot of radio, radio programs in the evening, when there are still DJs and they're still playing records that they want to play, rather than being, following a computer playlist.
Yeah.
And they know something about you, and they know something about music, and you can have a good conversation. That kind of interview is always nice to do. It's not, doesn't have to be a Rolling Stone magazine. It just needs to be an interview with some depth. I'm 57, not 17, so you want to talk about things that are actually interesting. It's not like fast food type interviews, which happen most of the time. You go into radio stations nowadays, they don't even know, what I did 5 years ago or 2 years ago. They know nothing. So I just got to the point where I just said no to everything, and it hasn't made any difference to my career whatsoever. My concerts are the same, and it hasn't changed anything.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because, for example, commercial radios doesn't have time, really.
Yeah, and the whole system's changed.
Yeah.
I know that. I worked in commercial radio for a year. I did a show in Scotland in 2000 on Scott FM. It was called The Cat House. I did my own radio show because I wasn't... it was kind of in between Genesis and starting a solo career. And I did it, and it was quite fun for a while. But I saw how radio worked at that time. I saw how the whole system worked. And I did it for a year and then said, okay, enough, I'm out. Not for me. It was becoming more and more formatted.
Yeah.
And in the old days, when you had the character of a DJ, And there were great ones, obviously, like John Peel in the UK and Bob Harris in the UK. I mean, I'm talking about UK DJs. You know, these guys were. Steve Wright was another one in the UK. They were really great. You know, they knew about music, and they would introduce new music to you. And
it was before the internet, right?
It was before that, yeah. And of course now it's, you know, everything's just programmed, and it's about market research, and like you say, there's a lot of pressure on. You know, commercial radio. It's because it's about making money. It's not about music at all. It's just about revenue for the shareholders.
Yeah.
You know, so do I want to be part of that world? No, not at all. But I think when it's government radio, like, you know, you guys are involved in and stuff, there's different kind of pressure. It's not so intense, I guess. It's a different feeling. And in my experience, performing or doing interviews through government radio, or evening playing Radio Troika, which we played a few times in the past, it was always great fun with Piotr Tchaikovsky and. Marek Niedźwiecki and stuff like, you know, we had some really great interviews and some good performances where people were genuinely interested in music, and not, you know, can you speak Polish and what's your favourite colour?
Okay.
So for me, it's, you know, a different level.
Okay, but interesting interviews, interesting stuff in interviews. I remember one thing from our last conversation, and I wanted to ask you again about it, because 5 years ago, you told me something that I told to many people after that. That Ray Wilson told me that after 5 years living in Poland, he said something like, "People in Poland changed."
No, Poland's changed, absolutely, yes.
And you've seen this change, like. More money, less nice. You said something like that.
But that's not just Polish society. That's a fact of life. When people get richer, they don't need to care about other people so much. You know, I think people become more insular, and you know, you have your own apartment and your own car and your own this. You know, everything's about you. Whereas when I came here, everything was about family.
Okay.
That was the difference. And I don't see that so much now. I mean, it still exists to some degree, of course. But it was more, there was much more of a warmth about society. It felt that way to me. And as people get richer, and I guess, you know, it's always interesting for me watching someone who achieves some degree of wealth, learning how to be wealthy, how should you act, you know, and you can tell, you just look at the way someone's dressed to know, you know, that if they've just suddenly found money or not, you know, they've suddenly starting to do well, and they just dress a certain way. There's a look about people like that. Whereas people who are born into wealth, you know, like who have been wealthy forever, they don't do that, you know. And not that I'm one of them, I'm very working class. But when you see people who have been born into wealth, you know, they kind of look kind of normal, like working class people. But the people in the middle, they're kind of trying to find some...
Show something.
Yeah, it's like, it's showmanship, yeah. And... I mean, I was there myself. I went through the same process when I was, you know, in my 20s. But it's not what life's about, of course, you know. You learn as you get older.
Okay. So what's life about?
What's life about? Family. You know, that's it, number one. Life's about family, and I guess... you know, following your path and with some conviction, and you know, doing something worthwhile with your life, you know. And I'm not saying you have to be a rock star to do something worthwhile. You know, you can be a nurse, or you know, someone who helps old people, or you know, the simple jobs that really matter. But yeah, life's for me primarily is about family, and after that, it's about I guess creativity, creating, you know, is a big part of what life is. Just doing something that's becomes an extension of who you are, you know, creating something. That's which again is family. I mean, you create children, you know what I mean? So it's...
Okay, but 7 years ago you didn't have family, right?
That's true, yeah, and I didn't have the same joy in my life. There's no question. I wasn't as happy. You know, I was going round and round in a circle, you know, doing the same thing year in, year out, doing concerts, you know, making some money, going on holiday, spending the money, going back, making some concerts, maybe writing another album, and then going round and round and round, you know. And it was I wouldn't say that it was unfulfilling, but it didn't have the same. My life didn't have the same depth at that time that it has now, and music was always came first in my life, always. Now it doesn't.
Okay.
Now it's second.
So
third.
all you need is love, like the Beatles.
It is a bit like that, yeah. It is a bit like that. Yeah, you know, again, going back to children, you're suddenly faced with something that's more important to you than yourself.
Okay.
You know, something you would die for. You know, that's the difference.
That's this unconditional love, right?
Yes, exactly. And
like a miracle.
It is. It is a miracle, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely a miracle.
Okay, but they say that, you know, rock stars and artists, when they have too much love, their work isn't that good.
That's also true. I would say I'm less creative now.
Really?
Yes. I think that is true. And you see it throughout, you know, when you look at like kind of legends, you know, like Bob Dylan's and Bruce Springsteen's and I mean, Bruce Springsteen still creates good music, to be fair, but when I looked at the artists that I really loved, yes, they're still creating, but it's not quite on the same level as it was, you know.
Really?
I remember watching Bob Dylan being interviewed, I think it was on 60 Minutes, and, you know, he was saying he doesn't know who this person was that was creating all this music in the, you know, 60s and 70s. He said, I don't know who that person was. I can't relate to that person anymore. And yet it was doing this amazing, amazing music, you know, that's timeless. And I mean, now he still does music, but it's not on that level. Maybe once in a while you get something that's quite special, but
okay. Maybe he was doing drugs back then.
Yeah, maybe there was that. But I do think there is a time when you're so inspired by life, you know, everything, especially with, I think one of the greatest inspirations for me as a writer is other artists' music. You get inspired by other artists, and you know, all even the Beatles were inspired by other artists. And I remember when I was enjoying writing the most, it was normally because I'd listened to a new band, or maybe like Jeff Buckley or Live, or, you know, even the grunge scene, the Nirvana stuff and Pearl Jam and these bands. That was such an inspiring time for me. Everything was like new, and you wanted to create music that was in that kind of genre, and, you know, that was as good as Radiohead or whatever. Yeah. It was so exciting. And of course, I don't have that now. You know, I don't listen to something and go, oh wow, that's amazing. Everything sounds like something else I've already heard. So there's not that same excitement that there was in the 90s, for example. 90s is the time when I remember enjoying writing the most, and there's not quite that same excitement for me now. So I do still write, but it's not. I'm not so prolific. You know, I don't write so much, and it needs to be something. If something means something to me, something happens that touches me, then for sure, you know, I will write something and it will come really quickly. But it just doesn't happen so much as it did before. And I would imagine that's probably true for many of the true great artists as well. Like I say, Bob Dylan, he wrote the song "It's Not Dark Yet," which was, for me, is a truly amazing song, on the par with "Knocking on Heaven's Door" and "Forever Young" and "Blowing in the Wind." It's on that level, but there's not much you can say. Not many other songs that he's written in recent times that you could say that about. So bits of magic still happen. It just doesn't happen so much as when you're young and inspired by everything.
Okay.
For me, that's my feeling.
Okay. You've mentioned about writing in the 90s. Listening to your latest songs, I have feelings that you've inspired by 70s music, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, the two decades that for me were the best were 70s and 90s. I'm a David Bowie fan. That was my first artist that I really was, fell in love with the music. Do
you remember why? Because here in Poland, we don't get David Bowie's stuff, I think.
Well, I mean, of course, in the 70s in Poland was very different to the 70s in the UK. What you were able to listen to was different at that time. Not anymore, but at that time it was. So for me, David Bowie, I'm trying to remember why I think that, ironically, the first piece of music that I ever got from David Bowie, I stole it from a record shop because I had no money. My family had no money. I stole it to my shame, and it was a cassette, and it was called David Bowie, David Bowie, David Bowie, and it was his very, very early music that he did. Some of it as David Jones, which, for people who don't know, his name is David Jones, and he became David Bowie. But when he did a lot of songs as David Jones, and there was songs like The Laughing Gnome, which is a kind of, I don't know.
Weird thing.
You know it, yeah. So it was very Cockney London kind of cheeky music. But anyway, it was the first music I heard from David Bowie was this stuff, and I don't know, just something. I think with there are certain artists, it doesn't really matter what they do, you get something from it,
Okay.
Always. Even like Tin Machine, a lot of people say David Bowie's the Tin Machine thing was a failure for him. I don't see it that way. I thought Tin Machine was fabulous, and I'm a fan of heavy metal and as well, and alternative rock, and Tin Machine was exactly that. I loved it. So he was one of those artists, it didn't really matter what he did, I would get something from it. And so going back to when I started discovering music as a teenager, and I was listening to the David Bowie album, and then of course I got Ziggy Stardust and Hunky Dory and Scary Monsters and Heroes, and I mean it just goes on and on and on. And it was amazed that this guy could create this, just magic, and every album he did was different. He was a different character to the one he'd done before.
Yeah.
It was so incredibly inspiring. And then listening to the likes of another side of Bob Dylan, I mentioned him before. That was really through my father. He was a big fan of Bob Dylan and Bruce Springsteen and Jackson Browne. And I discovered Bob Dylan really through my dad. And I always loved listening to the early acoustic music that he did because of his writing skills were, second to none. The way he would say something was just, nobody else could say something in that way and at that time. So I find that, these moments were incredibly inspiring and made you want to write. It made you want to be David Bowie, or it made you wanted to write a song as good as Bob Dylan did. I mean, not that I ever have, but, at least you try. Mm-hmm. So it's incredibly inspiring time. And like I say, now, I'm at a different stage in my life and I don't get that anymore. And it's a shame. I would love to, but I don't. It happens once in a blue moon,
Okay.
when a child is born or something like that. Something that's really moving and you think, well, there's something that touches me. But I love performing, that's the other side of it is I perform a lot.
But your melodies, your music, your songwriting touches people.
Yeah, I mean it does. I mean I have my fan base, and you know, the music means something to a lot of people. I get a lot of emails and messages from people about how songs mean something to them, and that's always great, you know. It's a nice thing to hear when someone says, you know, this song changed my life, or I played this song at my wedding, or, you know, at the most special day of my life. And I mean, that's pretty amazing. How many people can say that, you know, that have these experiences? So,
like dreaming come true?
Yeah, I mean, it is really quite incredible. Sometimes in life, you know, you have to pinch yourself and I've had a few moments like that in my life where I've gone, wow, you know, this is really happening, you know. And if you create something and you know, someone stands before you and tells a story of how it completely changed their life, you know, you're like, wow, that's pretty special, you know. And I'm grateful for that, very much so. And it's nice to perform these songs and to have people, you know, people coming back time after time, watching them and buying tickets to concerts. It's really quite gratifying, you know.
Yeah, because it's interesting. You've mentioned David Bowie from the 70s, but I sometimes think that you're doing some great music for Pink Floyd fans right now in Poland,
well, I mean,
for example.
They're another great example. Yes, I mean, Pink Floyd.
And you're closer to Pink Floyd right now than David Bowie, you know.
Maybe because of my association with Genesis. I think it's more about that. I mean, we do like Wish You Were Here, and when I have a guitarist called Ali Ferguson, one of my guitarists, his guitar playing is very reminiscent of David Gilmour. He's a big fan of David Gilmour, and he plays in that style, and he's great. You know, he's a really super player. So yeah, I mean, the Pink Floyd. There's always Pink Floyd fans in my audience, that's for sure. You know, always, and there's always David Bowie fans in my audience also. So, but yeah, you know, these artists that effectively shaped popular music, and Pink Floyd are one of them, and Neil Young's another one, you know, another artist I listen to a great deal as well. Probably more than any other artist, I listen to Neil Young.
Really?
And ironically, I watched David Gilmour being interviewed, and he said the same thing, that he listens to Neil Young more than, that's the artist he looks forward to a new album coming from.
Yeah, great music and great lyrics.
Great lyrics, and and some of the early Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young stuff, and Buffalo Springfield, and you know, some great music from that time. And again, that goes back to my father again, because my father was always listening to music. You know, I always have the image of the cigarette, the newspaper open, the room full of smoke, and the vinyl playing. You know, and whether it was you know, Cat Stevens, another artist that I remember listening to a lot. He was in my father's repertoire, but it was I remember mostly the Springsteen and Jackson Browne, Neil Young for sure, Neil Young, Harvest, and Rust Never Sleeps. These great albums from the 70s that they still, you know, it comforts you, that music. You know, when you think about the music you listened to when you were young and you play it, it's like it gives you a hug. You know, cuddles you. It's like, oh wow, you know, everybody has it, and everybody has their music that they like. But you know, and my wife's 39, so she's that, you know, slightly different time period, and she has the music that reminds her of her youth. You know, that's what it's all about. And it's great, you know, I love it. It's a wonderful thing. Music is less one of my T-shirts at them. I've got a couple of T-shirts. I always like to put slogans on them, and one of them, I introduced a song of mine called Alone. We've got a very nice live version of a song called Alone that I wrote. And I said one time, if you have music, you're never alone. And I didn't think about it. I just said it when I was introducing the song. And it became like a kind of catchphrase for, you know, if you have music, you're never alone. And people really related to that. You know, you got this round of applause when I said it. So I put it on a T-shirt. If you have music, you're never alone. And I have one now, less war, more music, because, all we're ever hearing about is the war in Ukraine and, the possibility of war in Taiwan, and it goes on and on and on. All this trouble that seems to exist all over the place. And we need to, move away from that and focus on music again.
Yeah, but right now you live next door to, Ukraine war.
Of course, and and many Ukrainian people living here, as well. And I mean, it's tragic. It's just tragic what's happening. Not only the war in Ukraine. I mean, God help these people living in freezing temperatures, with their power grids being blown up, and I mean, it's pure evil what Putin has done. Evil. There's no other word to describe it. It's on a par with Adolf Hitler, It's the same thing. Evil. And the resilience of these people is incredible, absolutely incredible.
For us, it's still unbelievable that it is happening here.
Yeah, I mean, in Poland, you've got your history, you know all about it, Scotland too, maybe goes back a bit further, but still, we've spent our lives fighting everybody. But, Poland certainly has, you have a long history of war and I don't know, it's such a shame, you look back, 10 years ago, maybe something like that, and it was a very different world, there wasn't much. I mean, okay, the Crimea thing kind of happened in, I think it was 2014, wasn't it? But the world was a peaceful place for a long time, and it was like, I don't know, somehow the people in positions of power got bored, they wanted to shake it up, and now look at the world we live in, with Trump's behaviour, with populism in the UK and in Germany and, everywhere, let's be honest, that you're getting that kind of politics back again. We seem to have lost the balance. I think that's the best way to describe it. We always need to be somewhere in the middle. I think whether your politics is slightly left or slightly right or whatever, fair enough. That's all good. But when everything now seems to be about extreme, you have to have an extreme view. And the problem with that is that you're not prepared to listen to anybody else's opinion. And that's not the way anything works. If you think about, I don't know, your marriage, if you only do things the way you want to do them, you're not going to have a successful marriage. You need to have yin and yang. You need to have balance. And we seem to have lost balance, in society.
Because you get more clicks on the social media.
That's true. And
extreme things, yeah.
That's true. I mean, the press, and who owns the press, let's not forget that, are manipulating the system. Because like you say, if you instill fear or anger into people, you'll get a reaction, and that's what they do. And there's a lot of people make a lot of money out of war, obviously, It's not you or me,
yeah. And on this little wars on social media as well.
Yes, exactly. I mean, social media is another great example of an opportunity to fan the flames, and to make things. I don't know. I mean, what do you do? I don't know the answer. I think, stick to the basics and try and be a good person.
Yeah.
Try your best.
You've mentioned about Scottish people fighting with each other all the time, yeah? Maybe this is the thing that we have in common, Polish people and Scottish people.
I mean, you say that and laugh, but yes, you're right. It is what you have in common with the Scots. We get along very well, Polish and Scots people, in Scotland too. And I remember, when a lot of Polish people came into Scotland, into the UK, when you joined the EU, Polish people integrated really, really well into Scottish society. I don't remember any. I mean, there was always one or two people who had issues, but I felt that Polish communities fitted very nicely into Scottish society. We have a lot in common. We're very similar types of people. Okay, we speak a different language, but I think our values are much the same. And even with working, I work with a lot of Polish guys in my band, great musicians and nice people. And I also work with Scottish guys and German. And it's interesting when you watch the work ethic of the different nationality. Like I would say, for example, with my German musicians, their work ethic in relation to the Polish or the Scottish work ethic is quite different. The Polish, the Scottish guys are there getting, at the end of the gig, getting everything packed away and, doing their thing, and the Germans are drinking wine, and doing nothing, I mean, that's not typical of all Germans, but I noticed that with the musicians I worked with, they were by far and away much more lazy than the Polish and the Scottish guys. And I experienced that a lot. I'm not just saying it. I saw it, And even when you have crew guys, you go to a gig and you watch, you'll maybe have some helpers. If it's a bigger concert, there's 3 or 4 guys helping load in and help with the equipment. And the same situation happens in some other countries, not only Germany, but other countries. And you'll see the guys standing there smoking a cigarette. They're all dressed with they look like road crew, they look like the stereotype of road crew, but they're doing nothing, But when you go to the Polish gigs, everybody's working hard. You see it, and I've seen this for years and years and years. I'm not making it up. And the Scottish lads are the same, they roll the sleeves up and get on with it. And I think there's something about the mentality of the Scots and the Poles that is very, very similar. Okay. We have an ethic, a work ethic, and I think the family thing too.
And we also like to party, yeah?
Well, you like to drink. It's just your one's clear and our one's kind of cloudy brown, our whiskey, your vodka. But yeah, they like to party too, that's for sure. Mm. But the one thing I do miss actually with the Scots is the sense of humour. I miss that, I'm often asked, what do you miss your home? And generally I would say, no, I don't. I don't miss living in Scotland. I mean, I love the fact that I'm Scottish, of course, but I can't say that I miss being there. But I do miss the humour. And maybe that's different between the Poles and the Scots. The Scots and the Irish were very sarcastic humour. Yeah. And I don't know if that exists so much in Polish society. Maybe for some. It definitely doesn't exist in German society, that's for sure. They don't have that. But the Scots and the Irish, we have this kind of sick, sarcastic, kind of fucked up humour. And I miss that.
All right.
I really do.
I can tell you that every time I'm making an interview with somebody from, UK and especially Scotland maybe and Ireland, and really, I have to really be careful. Yes,
absolutely. Yeah. They're a certain type, the Scots and the Irish. I mean, the Scots originate from the Irish, so we are very much brothers and sisters, so, but great people. Especially, I love the Irish, they're wonderful people. They really are.
Yeah, we had so many interviews with Scottish artists because there are so many fantastic Scottish artists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very creative, we've got a very creative history, the Scots, for sure. And inventing things, that's our other thing. We invented telephone and television and bicycle and, the list goes on and on and on, medicine and penicillin, and it's all Scottish inventions, There's a lot of creative, creative blood, that's for sure, in the Scots. I mean, there's only 5 million people in Scotland. It's, Poland's pretty much 40 million almost, Scotland, we have 5 million, but, we have we're a very creative people, for sure.
Okay, the very last thing about your wife, Marika, because and about dating.
Yeah.
Because you have a message to all the men in the world: do it with acoustic guitar.
Oh yeah, my song on the internet. Yeah.
No restaurant.
Yeah, I dated Marika by singing together. Yeah, I went with the guitar. But I mean, that's you you use your strong points, what you're good at. And that was, I was good at that. So we sat and sang Country Roads by John Denver and some Elvis. And it was really nice, the first date that we had. There was no kissing or anything like that, it was just talking. And we talked for about 3 or 4 hours. And I met Marika, actually, she interviewed me for Leszno local TV.
All right.
I was playing in Włoszakowice, in this hotel. I had this little acoustic show, I think it was, in Włoszakowice. And she's from that area, she's from the Kasztor, which is a little village not far from there. And anyway, she was... we did this gig in a hotel, and she interviewed me. And I always remember this girl coming. This was 11 years ago, 12 years ago. And I remember this beautiful blonde girl coming in thinking, oh my God, wow, And she interviewed me, and I was, of course, it was normally, no disrespect, but, normally my interviewers look like you, they're a guy with a beard, and this girl comes in, I was like, oh, wow. So I remember this, we had this meeting and we had this interview, and then years and years later, I think I saw her I think it was through social media. I was liking some pictures and stuff, and I contacted her and went round and played some songs. And, we dated for, actually, I went round again a couple of weeks later, same kind of thing. And then she kind of wasn't interested for like 2 months or something, I thought, okay, so it's not happening, I've lost this one. And then miraculously, out of nowhere, she seemed to be interested again. And I think we'd been dating 2 weeks, and I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. And I was kind of half joking, half serious, half joking, because I didn't expect her to say yes. And she said yes. I was like, oh, okay. Fantastic. So that's that. Yeah, and now we have our little girl, little Mia, and yes, it's perfect. Really great. Gives me a reason to stay in Poland as well.
So it's possible that this kind of love...
It happens. It still happens. The magic still happens. Anything's possible, Like I say, it's the world we live in at the moment is can be a bit scary and a bit overwhelming. But I think focus on the basics, focus on the simple things in life, and because you can change them. We can't change what's going on in the world, all of the madness that takes place. But you can change what's happening on your, in your own little world, and
in the street. Yeah.
Exactly. You can make a difference, and you can be polite to people and smile at people. Ask someone how are they doing. When you go to order your food, don't just go through the motions. Have a conversation and say, "How are you? How are you feeling? How's life?" Put something, some of that humanity back in again. We seem to be losing it a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
For all the words and your time and your music.
Yeah, nice call, nice conversation. I didn't know what we were going to talk about. So.
Yeah. Have a great concert in Poznań, and
yeah, we will.
And a great life in Poland.
Yes, of course. 18 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, 18 years, my God. It goes fast.
Like in this Gerry Rafferty track, everything is written.
Yeah, written in your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ray Wilson.
Dziękuję.